It's over. And now was the test. And the loop, they were candidates. They were not prisoners. They were never trapped. Humanity realizes something final. It simply allows. It does not judge, and it does not speak. A structure beyond comprehension. A system beyond systems, but as something else entirely. Not as a god, not as a being, everywhere, but here, not watching from afar, not distant anymore. The presence, they feel it, and then to become something capable of existing beyond simple reality, to survive instability, to retain identity, to endure repetition, to force it to evolve, a process designed to shape consciousness. Preparation. It wasn't even containment in the way they feared. It wasn't control. It wasn't punishment. The collapse, the glitches, the memory bleed, the respawns, the deaths, the loops, everything. And then they understand. A reality so complex that the human mind as it once was could never process it. Unimaginable, something vast. And beyond it, a barrier, a filter, a training ground. One of many. A contained layer, but as something far smaller than they ever imagined. Not as something they were inside. The system. They see it. And in that state, expanded beyond anything human language can describe. Unfiltered, pure, only awareness, no physical form. There are no bodies beyond the loop, beyond time, a space beyond structure, but somewhere else. Not in the world they knew, not on Earth. Humanity wakes up, but completely, not physically. It happens, and then now feel like preparation. Loops that felt endless, now feel like steps. Deaths that felt random, suddenly connect. Fragments that never made sense before, but across many, not just within one life. Memories start aligning, but in awareness. Not in reality. Then come the fractures. More real, sharper, heavier. The air feels different, like waking up from a dream you didn't know you were having. Subtle, a shift. People begin to feel it first, but in perception, not in the world. Something changes, and then, almost unnoticeable, quiet. Just a moment. No visible breaking point, no collapse. There is no explosion. It doesn't happen all at once. There is no going back when the containment breaks, because deep down everyone understands one thing: everything ends. For the moment, watching, waiting, they push themselves closer and closer to the boundary. They map the edge of consciousness. They study the moments between death and nothingness. But to cross, not to survive. These groups begin preparing, no matter the cost, to face whatever is beyond the barrier, to understand. They want to see. They don't want the loop back. They don't want control. They don't want safety. There are those who choose differently, and then is no longer maintaining it, because whatever created it, but nothing works. Anything that might trigger the system again. Neural loop experiments. Artificial death cycles, mass simulations. Governments scrambled to recreate the conditions. At least it kept something out, because at least it was predictable, even if it was a prison. To restore the loop, trying to rebuild the system. Obsessed. They become desperate. Others react the opposite way. Much worse, might be worse, because whatever lies beyond the system, to avoid whatever comes next, to accept the unknown. They decide to live whatever time remains in peace. Stop questioning. They stop searching. Some people choose immediately or know the truth. Stay safe. But between two terrifying possibilities, not between life and death. Because for the first time the choice becomes clear. Just realization, not panic, not confusion. At first there is silence. No more barrier, no more control, no more loop, no more system. Then everything changes. if the containment ends and humanity understands immediately, just certainty, no timeline, no detail, no explanation, containment will be terminated, impossible to ignore, unmistakable, clear. Across the world, every human receives it at the same time. Final, cold, short, just a message. No signal beforehand, no build-up. It arrives without warning. It might be too late to stop it. And now, something that was never meant to reach this level. Through thought, through memory, but through awareness. Not physically, because something had begun to cross over. Noticed, and something outside, to expand beyond its boundaries, to connect. Human consciousness was starting to merge across loops. The walls between cycles were breaking. They were symptoms. They weren't errors. The glitches, the alternate lives, the memory bleed, and suddenly everything connects. Consciousness overlap increasing. Containment unstable. Leak detected. But enough to form a pattern. Damaged. Incomplete. Fragments of the message begin to surface in scattered data systems. What was being contained with them? Or worse, then what were they being contained from? If humanity was being contained violently, and then the question shifts. So they couldn't spread. So they couldn't leave. Trapped inside a repeating structure. They were being held. Humanity was never being protected, but consciousness itself. Not physical life, not bodies, but to keep something contained. Not to save humanity from death. A structure built with purpose. A mechanism. It was a system, never evolution, never a miracle. Respawning was never a gift. The meaning lands instantly. A failed one, then silence. This was a containment, almost clinical, detached, calm. The message continues. Across something far larger than a single universe. Across structures, across timelines, over and over again. Looping, respawning, dying, living, humanity, and within each one, variations shifting, worlds repeating, countless cycles running in parallel. Layers upon layers of reality stacked on top of each other. Impossible to fully process. Something vast. Something else. But not human memories. Memories. Not imagination. Not dreams. Then come the images. You have reached the limit. And it begins with one line. Perfectly understood. Perfectly synchronized. But inside their minds. Not through sound. Not through screens. At the exact same moment, every living human experiences it. Impossible to ignore. Direct, clear. There is only a message. Instead, no system reactivation. No one comes back. There is no revival, but not the way anyone expected. It returns. 3 days after respawning stops, there is no coming back. From the knowledge that this time, from fragility, from fear, they have to relearn everything. And now, too long without finality. They've spent too long without consequences. Humanity has forgotten how to live like this. But there's one problem. Every breath matters. For the first time since the beginning of the loop, aware in a way they haven't been for a very long time. Silent, careful, people withdraw. It contracts. The world doesn't erupt. Final. Every mistake, every risk becomes real. Every choice carries weight. It means something again. And this time is back. Death. Because this stability comes at a cost, humanity is not ready to accept. And that's when the realization hits hardest. Permanent, solid. The world feels real for the first time in years. Consistent, smooth, perfectly. Reality stabilizes. No more overlapping moments. No more fractured time. No more flickering buildings. Completely. Stop. The glitches. And then something even stranger happens. Or abandoned. Has simply been turned off. As if the mechanism that governed death. No signal. no process, no return. Every record shows the same result, every sensor, every system, because the data confirms it. But hope fades quickly. They hope, they watch, people wait. At first, there is denial. Panic doesn't spread instantly, completely. Respawning has stopped, because across the world, people begin to realize the same thing at the same time. Then freeze, cities slow, stay down, but because those who fall, not because the fighting stops. Battlefields grow quiet, but nothing happens, expecting the impossible, expecting breath, expecting movement. Doctors wait beside lifeless bodies. Hospitals fall into a strange, heavy stillness, and the truth becomes impossible to ignore. But then the minutes turn into hours, another fluctuation in the failing system. People assume it's just another delay. Then minutes, a few seconds pass. At first, it's barely noticeable. No one comes back. For the first time since respawning was discovered, silence. It begins with something far more unsettling. No final signal, no warnings, no explosions. It doesn't begin with chaos. When it's gone, what happens? The real question now is, it's already breaking. Can we break the system? The question is no longer, then humanity was never meant to survive this stage. And if that's true, designed to end, planned, this was always temporary, then that means something even more frightening. But if it's letting go, destructive, unpredictable, then the end will be chaotic. Because if it's losing control, and no one knows which is worse, or letting go, is losing control, whatever is holding the loop together, it's collapsing. The system isn't just unstable. Scientists come to a terrifying conclusion, or rewritten, as if sections of reality are being deleted. Others lose time completely. Some people experience hours that never happened. Break, overlap, moments repeat. Time fractures. Entire city blocks shift slightly, then snap back. Buildings flicker in and out of existence. More impossible to ignore, more visible, more frequent. The glitches increase. Reality itself begins to react, but the instability doesn't stop there. Death might be final, because now every danger feels real. Every action is reconsidered. People hesitate again. For the first time in a long time, public deaths become rare. Extreme challenges disappear. The culture of death collapses almost overnight. People stop taking risks, and that changes everything. No logic, no warning, no pattern. Others vanish forever. Some people die and return instantly. There are no rules. Now, even if those rules were unnatural, for years death had rules, is something humanity has forgotten how to live with. And randomness. This is randomness. This isn't choice, because this isn't control. Panic spreads faster than ever before, and stayed dead. They just died, never wanted to leave, never searched for a way out. Because many of those who disappear, but that explanation doesn't hold. Hidden processes, secret methods, the final exit. At first, people assume it's connected to the black market, don't come back at all, and a few, weeks. Others, some individuals take days to return. Days, not just minutes or hours anymore. Delays grow longer, but enough to be noticed. Not all at once, not dramatically. Respawn behavior begins to shift after the signal is received. They don't go away, but this time, easy to dismiss as error, easy to miss. At first, the changes are subtle, was not designed to last. The system, because now humanity knows something critical, but it's enough. No explanation, no follow-up. The signal cuts out immediately after. This was never meant to be permanent. Undeniable, sharp, but one fragment is clear, almost impossible to decode. Distorted. The data is incomplete, somewhere outside, but from somewhere else. Not from any known system, not from Earth. A signal. Something is captured. For less than a second, briefly, succeeds, but one group, nothing gained. They return. They die. Most fail. What lies in between? Trying to see as the body shuts down, trying to stay aware, right up to the boundary of death. They push consciousness to the edge, using neural interfaces, experimental drugs, and extreme mental conditioning. That moment no one has ever been able to observe. That invisible gap. They try to reach the space between death and return. Others go even further, confuse whatever is observing, interrupt the cycle, break the pattern. The goal, controlled environments designed to eliminate all risk, isolation chambers, extreme survival protocols. They refuse to die at all. Instead of dying, some groups attempt the opposite approach. Encouraged humanity pushes further. The system shows strain for the first time. Minutes into hours. Seconds turn into minutes. Respawn delays begin to spike. And that's when something changes. Entire regions synchronize their deaths down to the second. Then tens of millions. Millions participate. But then the scale increases, just like always. They come back. People die. Nothing happens. At first, force it to fail. Overload the system. The idea is straightforward. Thousands of people choosing to die at the exact same moment across different locations. Coordinated deaths. The first attempts are simple. But disruption, not control, not survival, all begin working toward the same goal. Respawn elites, scientists, governments, even underground groups. The answer becomes a global obsession, and almost immediately, can the system be broken? There is only one question left, because none of that matters anymore. For the first time, humanity is no longer divided by borders, ideologies, or conflict, and it is watching. There is something behind the system. Every human on Earth now shares one undeniable truth. Loaded. This time it's heavy. But it's not the same silence as before. Silence returns. After the message, and starts looking outward. Humanity stops fighting itself. And for the first time in human history, by something that exists outside everything they understand. Being judged, being seen. But fear of something far worse. Not fear of pain, not fear of death. Fear returns, but not like before. Containment, maybe even observation. It's oversight. This isn't a phenomenon, because now the scale is clear. Scientists stop asking small questions. Governments stop pretending they understand. Respawn elites stop acting invincible. Everything changes after that moment. They were never in control. They are not alone, because now humanity knows. But the damage is already done. Only silence. No way to respond. No source to locate. No signal to trace. It's gone. And just like that, we are watching the final line. And then they settle into the mind like something that has always been there. They don't need to. The words don't echo. The cycle is unstable, detached, cold, calm. The message continues. Something that didn't expect this. There is something behind the system. There is no more doubt, because now some begin laughing uncontrollably. Others collapse. Some people scream. Panic spreads instantly. No explanation, no variation, no distortion. Exactly the same. Everyone heard it. And then it hits. Trying to confirm if others experienced the same thing. People look around trying to understand what just happened. At first there is confusion. Panic doesn't come immediately. You were not meant to stay this long. And the message says, in the same way, at the same time, yet is understood perfectly by everyone who receives it. A message that doesn't use words, a presence, but as something deeper. Not as sound, not through their ears, hearing something, listening, aware. eyes open, standing still. They just freeze, not die, not collapse. Millions of people stop across the world at the exact same time. Just a moment. No visible cause. No buildup. No warning. It doesn't begin with the signal. Or does everything collapse with it? Do people finally die? No one knows what happens next. And if it breaks, or reaching its limit, is breaking down, as if the system maintaining the loop, reality itself, is under strain. It's structural. This isn't neurological. Scientists can't deny it anymore, or failing to. Like reality is trying to correct itself. A different outcome. A movement altered. A word changed. Each version slightly different. Others relive the same moment multiple times, except them. Some individuals experience moments where everything freezes. Time itself becomes unstable, as if they were never there, who disappear seconds later. People report seeing strangers. Entire locations feel slightly off. Streets don't match maps anymore. Buildings appear where there should be nothing. In reality itself, not just in memory. The glitches begin. And then, for longer than anyone can comprehend, and again, again, but across entire timelines. Not just coming back within a life, it's recursion. Respawning isn't just repetition. Then everything changes. Because if that's true, silence follows. This isn't our first loop. One of them says something that no one can explain. And then, the same alternate version of reality, as if they all experienced the same other life, down to the smallest detail. Same outcomes, same events, same locations. Exactly, their stories match. Because when these individuals are separated, isolated, questioned independently, but something doesn't add up. Cognitive bleed. They call it a fractured mind trying to cope, a side effect of excessive respawning. Doctors label it quickly. At first it sounds like a disorder. Lives they've never lived, choices they've never made, places they've never been. They start remembering things that never happened. They don't just remember their own deaths anymore. Memory overflow. But something far stranger. Not memory loss, yet all reporting the same thing. Scattered across different countries, different cultures. No connection to each other. It begins with a small group of individuals, until it wasn't. The one thing people trusted. That was the rule. And you remembered everything. You came back, no matter how many times you died. At first, memory was the only constant. What happens when the system is done with us? It becomes what happens after we die. It's no longer, and that realization changes the question forever. A step, a variable, a piece. They may be part of it. Then humanity may not be the center of it. And if there is a purpose, then that something has a purpose. And if something created it, then something created it. Because if it was created, but with understanding the system itself, not with escaping death, there are those who become obsessed. And then, even if it means risking everything, they refuse to play by the system's rules. Manipulation. They see it as control. Others reject it completely, but out of fear, not out of philosophy. They become careful, intentional, searching for meaning in everything they do. Some people change instantly. The world reacts in waves, refined, separated. They're being sorted. Humanity isn't being kept alive, and that leads to a terrifying conclusion, even when nothing forces you to. The ability to remain yourself. Continuity, identity, purpose, something harder to define, but something far more abstract. Not intelligence, not testing strength. It's a filter. It's no longer just a system. Some of them stop returning, until eventually their instability grows. Their delays increase, but structurally, not physically, they degrade. Endless death. Sensation chasing. Destruction. But those who spiral into chaos, their mental state holds longer. Their respawn times normalize, tend to stabilize. People who seek meaning, who build, create, connect, but consistent, hidden, subtle. There are patterns beyond behavior, changes everything again. And what they find, massive global collaborations begin. Data from every country is pooled together. Billions of death and return cycles are analyzed. Why does it exist? But instead, no longer asking how does respawning work, scientists shift their focus overnight. Something intentional. It might all be part of something larger. Every memory carried forward, every return, every death, an experiment. Maybe even a system, a framework, a structure. They are living inside something. They are not just living in a world where death doesn't exist. Humanity begins to understand something deeply unsettling. Then all at once, that realization spread slowly at first. It was designed, which leaves only one possibility, and it isn't under human control. It isn't natural. Respawning isn't random, and the pattern becomes undeniable. But the data keeps growing. Anything except the truth. They look for alternative explanations, hidden variables, scientific loopholes. At first, people try to deny it, or you're done. You continue. Something is deciding, and somewhere, it's being watched. Because now life isn't just being lived. Every pattern of behavior, every choice, every action, humanity begins to question everything, and not being allowed back, of reaching the end. The fear of being rejected. Far worse, a new one, but not the old fear of dying. Fear returns, and for the first time since respawning began, it's conditional. Death is no longer meaningless, because this changes everything. The world fractures overnight, and who doesn't? Who returns? A system that can decide. A system that responds. A system that observes. It's a system. It's not even neutral. It's not random. Respawning is not a natural process. The implications are impossible to ignore without being seen. Continuously, quietly, judging it, but evaluating it, as if something is not just tracking humanity, ways of living, patterns of choices, behavior. And they share one thing in common, but the cases keep increasing. Hidden variables, misreported. At first, it's dismissed as error at all, and they don't come back. They die. No external cause, no final exit, no black market. Stop respawning entirely. Some individuals, and then comes the most disturbing discovery, is rewarding restraint, as if something more consistently return faster. Meanwhile, those who avoid unnecessary death, then dramatically, then noticeably, at first just slightly, start taking longer to come back. People who repeatedly die for thrill, but by behavior, not by environment, not by biology. It's influenced. Respawn timing is not random. It can't be unseen. And once it's seen, a pattern begins to emerge. But as the dataset grows, random variation. At first it seems like noise in the data, sometimes more. Hours, a few take longer. Others take minutes. Some people return in seconds. They find inconsistencies. But when researchers begin measuring carefully, because respawning feels instant, you die, and then you wake up. At first, no one notices. A delay, almost invisible. It starts with something small, was wrong. But that assumption, a phenomenon without pattern, chaotic, unexplainable. For years, scientists believed respawning was random. And why? Who built it? Then there is a question humanity can no longer avoid. And if it's a system, it might be something else entirely. It isn't just a biological anomaly. Then respawning isn't random. Because if something is watching, it's no longer easy to ignore. And suddenly, the same awareness, the same feeling, the same presence start describing the same thing, with no connection to each other, from different places, different people. But then, side effects of death fatigue, delusion, hallucinations. At first, no one takes them seriously, just observing, not interfering, watching, something beyond the loop. But a presence, not hell, not heaven. They speak about something, but mentally, not physically, come back different. But a few, nothing changes, they return. They die. Most fail. Attempts to push consciousness beyond its limits. Extreme mental conditioning. Repeated death rituals. Dangerous. Their methods. They preach about ascending beyond the cycle, about breaking free, about reaching something higher, then growing. Small at first, cults begin to emerge. Controlled, constructed. That the loop is artificial, that this isn't natural at all, who believe something far more unsettling. And then there are those, an endless cycle designed to trap humanity. Others believe it's a punishment, a chance to reach perfection. Some believe respawning is a gift, but around the loop, built not around death, new religions begin to form. Something new always rises, but where belief collapses, death no longer leads anywhere. Entire belief systems begin to collapse under the weight of a single undeniable fact. Contradictions pile up. Faith weakens. Followers drift away. Others can't reconcile it. A preparation, a phase, a test. They reinterpret ancient texts, searching for hidden meanings, suggesting that respawning was always part of a greater design. Some try to adapt. Religions across the world begin to fracture. Unclaimed, unmoved, unchanged. Why does it keep coming back? If the soul exists, then when does judgment happen? If no one truly dies, none of it works anymore. But now, meaning, judgment, rebirth, hell, heaven, the transition to something beyond. Or at least, death is the end. For thousands of years, human civilization has been built on one central assumption. It shatters belief. Respawning doesn't just change behavior, something above. Or have they become something new? Then are they still human at all? If some humans can evolve through infinite death, a dangerous question emerges. And once that shift happens, beyond consequence, beyond hesitation, beyond fear, something that has gone beyond the normal human boundary, are something else. While they, limited, temporary, fragile, they begin to see the rest of humanity differently. Perspective, not just skill, something changes in them. And slowly, sharpened by repetition, polished by death, but because they are refined, not because they're stronger, they become the most valuable resource in the world. Corporations compete to recruit them. Governments rely on them. Leadership, technology, science, military, respawn elites begin to dominate everything. And those who evolve, those who break. Humanity splits into two groups, unavoidable, clear. The mental toll becomes a dividing line. Not everyone can endure dying over and over without breaking, because not everyone can do this. An imbalance. But this creates something humanity has never faced before. Achievable. Perfection becomes real. And with enough repetition, because failure has no cost, failure loses its meaning. It's data. Death isn't trauma. For them, over and over compressing decades of trial and error into what feels like weeks, returns again, dies again, fails again, adjusts one variable, returns, fails, dies. A scientist runs an experiment that should be impossible. They anticipate. They don't react anymore. every hesitation erased, every mistake removed, until every possible scenario has been lived through. Dies again and again and again. A soldier dies in combat confusion. Fear, chaos, becomes flawless, crashes 100 times, crashes 10 times, starts improving. A pilot crashes once, learns nothing. Precisely, intentionally, they begin using death strategically. Accumulated experience across hundreds, sometimes thousands of deaths. Not normal experience, but what they possess is something far more dangerous. They don't glow. They don't have powers. At first, they don't look different. Respawn elites. They are called by media, by governments, by the public. A new class of humanity begins to emerge. They master it. They don't just survive the loop. A few go even further. And then, some people adapt. Because while many minds begin to fracture under the weight of endless death, that's what makes it worse. Not everyone breaks. The only cure then is true death. If endless life feels like a curse, fearfully, quietly, more and more people begin asking the same question. And deep down, the more people believe it must be real. Because the more something is forbidden, it feeds it. It doesn't stop the idea, but suppression has the opposite effect. Even hope, population management, order, control. It threatens everything. Because if a way out exists, anyone associated with true death is labeled dangerous. Task forces are created. These groups are declared global threats. Meanwhile, governments react with force. No respawn. Fortunes exchanged for a single promise. Prices become unimaginable. But how to ensure they never return? Not how to kill someone. Elites secretly fund investigations. Private teams are assembled. Entire networks form underground dedicated to finding the truth. The wealthy become obsessed. Is something humanity forgot how to live with. And uncertainty. There is uncertainty again. Because for the first time since respawning began, panic spreads faster than belief ever did. People who were last seen searching for answers are the ones who never come back, and patterns begin to form. But then the numbers grow. Easy to explain, easy to ignore. At first, it's a few isolated cases. No return, no respawn, no body. Disappearing, not dying. People start disappearing. Something changes. But then, a coping mechanism for people who can't handle the new reality. Most dismiss it as a myth. The final exit. Something they call a process, a place, a method. People claiming they know something. Anonymous messages pass through layers of secrecy, encrypted channels, hidden forums, and that's when the whispers begin. Endless starts to feel unbearable, because once life starts to feel endless, but desperation has a way of changing what people believe. Respawning has been confirmed, studied, repeated billions of times. It's consistent, universal, unbreakable, almost absurd. At the beginning, it sounds impossible. Gone, permanent, but a true ending, not a longer respawn. Not a delay. What if there was a way to not come back? A quiet thought that most people are afraid to say out loud. At first, it's just an idea. A prison with no exit. Something far more terrifying. Or has it become something else entirely? Is this still a gift? If we can't truly end anything, if we can't escape life, then louder, quiet at first, a question begins to grow. And beneath all of it, a way to feel anything at all, a way to escape numbness. Death becomes entertainment, over and over again. But to die, they gather not to live. Rituals, competitions, shared experiences of death. Entire underground communities form around controlled dying, chasing stronger experiences. more intense endings, more extreme sensations just to feel something again. But to death, not to life. They become addicted. Others go in the opposite direction, cutting themselves off from others to avoid forming connections that no longer feel real, choosing isolation over endless repetition. Some people withdraw completely. Till death do us part becomes meaningless. When death doesn't separate anything, promises lose weight, love loses urgency. What does forever mean? When forever is guaranteed, relationships begin to break down, or just a collection of memories stitched together by repetition. Are you still the same person? If you've died 100 times, 1,000 times, identity begins to slip. And then comes the most dangerous part. Like something that resets too often to matter. Like a simulation, reality itself starts to feel less real. Nothing feels permanent, because nothing is. Fear feels distant. Joy feels muted. They stop reacting to things that once mattered. Then it deepens. People become quieter, slower, emotionally distant. At first it looks like exhaustion. They call it death fatigue. A new condition emerges. The human mind begins to fracture, and eventually, there is no escape. There is no forgetting. And again, and again, again. Your skin melting, your nerves screaming, the smell, the heat, the unbearable intensity, or burning perfectly. Now imagine remembering every single time, feeling your lungs burn, your chest tighten, the panic rising uncontrollably as your body screams for air. But dozens of times, not once. Imagine drowning. Something changes. But as the number grows, did you see anything? Was it painful? What did it feel like? People talk about it casually. A few deaths, a few memories, disturbing but tolerable. At first it's manageable. Every last second before everything goes dark, every sensation, every moment, every death stays with you. Because respawning doesn't reset the mind. Adaptation has a limit. But this time, you die, you come back. You remember it, sure, but memory fades. Humans adapt. That's what they've always done. After all, it's just death, right? At first, people believe they can handle it. A real death, a true ending. People begin to desire something they once feared more than anything for the first time in history, until finally, and again, again, humanity returns. Because no matter what happens, even catastrophic disasters only delay the inevitable. Disease doesn't stop it. Starvation doesn't stop it. People keep coming back, and still, never knowing what the world used to feel like. Never seeing open space. Entire generations grow up in these zones, but because there is simply nowhere else for them to go. Not because they've done something wrong. Massive containment zones are constructed isolated regions where populations are relocated, restricted, controlled, but containing them, not killing people. So humanity begins considering something unthinkable and no way to reduce them. There are too many people, and yet the reality becomes impossible to ignore. In a world where no one can die, because how do you justify limiting birth? Governments struggle to maintain order. Policies are introduced to control reproduction, but enforcement becomes chaotic and controversial. Something you fight for, something you earn. Clean air in dense megacities becomes a commodity. Water becomes controlled, not scarce yet, but regulated, monitored, rationed. Food shortages begin quietly, then they spread. Resources follow. And when space runs out, floating cities on the ocean, artificial islands, massive structures built across every possible environment that can sustain life. Humanity pushes outward. Eventually, even that isn't enough. Cities begin expanding upward. Skyscrapers stacking higher and higher into the sky. When that's no longer enough, they expand downward massive underground living systems carved deep beneath the surface. Then it explodes. Then it accelerates. At first, the growth is manageable. Never decrease. People only increase. And that creates a simple, terrifying equation. Every time, every person who dies comes back. Not ever. Death no longer reduces the numbers, but something else has. At the beginning, it doesn't seem dangerous. After all, people have always been born. That hasn't changed. Population, something inevitable. Something is building, but beneath the surface, people still wake up, still eat, still move through their daily routines. The world continues, almost normally, because everything feels the same. At first, no one notices the problem is to make the other side wish they could. The only way to win, because in a world where no one can truly die, forcing them to stop coming back, breaking their will. It's about exhausting them. Victory is no longer about killing the enemy. Battlefields turn into endless cycles of death and return. Waves of soldiers charging, dying, respawning, and charging again. They fight to endure. Soldiers no longer fight to survive. It evolves. War doesn't end. War. And then comes the final shift. Even the concept of justice starts to collapse. Execution becomes meaningless. Prisons begin to fail. How do you punish someone who can escape any consequence by simply dying? Almost impossible. But enforcing it, respawn abuse. New laws are introduced. Intentional death becomes restricted. A new term enters legal systems around the world. Governments react quickly. It's to break someone over and over again. Because now the goal isn't to kill. Psychological manipulation becomes more effective than ever before. Control rises. Torture rises. And that makes pain the most powerful weapon in the world. Suffering doesn't reset. Terror doesn't reset. Pain doesn't reset. You still feel everything before you die, because even if you come back, but something darker replaces them. Fear-based crimes start to decline. Robbery, self-preservation, violence, these lose impact when death isn't permanent. Change, not disappear. Then crime begins to change, because a lifetime never really ends. Entire industries begin to suffer. Productivity drops. Long-term goals feel irrelevant. The idea of a lifetime achievement starts to sound almost ridiculous, but many don't. Some people continue as normal, holding on to structure. Why spend decades building a career when time is no longer limited? Why wake up early, follow rules, chase stability, when failure has no real consequence? Work begins to lose meaning, but over time, they become impossible to control, easy to ignore, easy to explain away. At first, the changes are subtle. Nothing feels urgent anymore. And when there is always another chance, there is always another chance. Now, every decision mattered because it could be your last. And that limit gave everything weight, because before respawning, life had a limit. Life begins to lose its meaning, and slowly, without anyone noticing at first, something to repeat, something to understand, something to try. It becomes an experience. Death is no longer feared. A new culture begins to form. More people begin experimenting. Some document their experiences in detail. Others describe the same sensations, darkness, silence, sometimes fragments of something they can't explain. Then it spreads, At first, it's just a few individuals asking these questions. Is there a moment of peace? A flash of something beyond? A gap between ending and returning? What does death actually feel like? But for curiosity, not for fame. Quietly, intentionally, they start doing it on purpose. People don't just die for thrill, but something strange begins to happen. Dying becomes content. Social media becomes flooded with death challenges. The more dangerous, the more views. The more painful, the more attention. There's no real risk anymore. Why not? Extreme sports explode in popularity. People throw themselves off cliffs, jump from planes without proper equipment, push their bodies beyond every known limit. For the first time in human history, death is no longer something to avoid. It's something that can be undone. That single realization changes behavior instantly. Fear disappears almost overnight. At first, people celebrate, and then it erupts. It pauses. The world doesn't react slowly. Same body, same age, same memories up until the final moment. Every human, without exception, respawns after dying. Death is no longer permanent. And then comes the confirmation humanity was not ready for. The idea of a time of death becomes meaningless. Hospitals begin recording impossible cases. Patients declared dead suddenly sit upright again. Morgues fall into chaos as bodies disappear from storage. Funeral homes can't function anymore. It's happening everywhere because it's not isolated, but they fail. Scientists rush to investigate. Governments attempt to contain the information before it spreads too far. The same people, not similar people. Footage of people falling from impossible heights. Individuals being shot. Others drowning. Clearly lifeless. Only to reappear hours later, alive, conscious, and remembering everything. But then the videos start appearing. Stories begin appearing online. People claiming they died and somehow came back. At first, they sound like delusions, attention-seeking lies, or elaborate hoaxes designed to go viral. At first, no one believes it. The moment humanity discovers respawning, everything changes overnight. And so would everything else. It would change. Then death wouldn't disappear. Because if humans could respawn after death, the more it feels like something else entirely. But the longer you think about it, at first it feels like a miracle. Just another life, starting exactly where the last one ended. No warning, no explanation, no choice. Respawned. Same world, same memories, same you, but right back here. Not in heaven, not in hell. You wake up, and then imagine closing your eyes for the last time. Your heartbeat slowing, your body growing cold, and everything fading into silence. What if death wasn't the end?